الاتحادية للموارد البشرية الحكومية، سعادة حسن الحوسني المدير العام لهيئة الموارد البشرية لحكومة أبو ظبي بالإنابة، أصحاب السعادة، الأخوة والأخوات، السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. يسعدني وباسم الهيئة الاتحادية للموارد البشرية الحكومية وهيئة الموارد البشرية لحكومة أبو ظبي أن أرحب بكم في ملتقى نادي الموارد البشرية التاسع لهذا العام، والذي يعقد بالتعاون بين الهيئة الاتحادية للموارد البشرية الحكومية وهيئة الموارد البشرية لحكومة أبو ظبي تحت عنوان عالم جديد مهارات جديدة. ويعد ملتقى النادي في إمارة أبو ظبي تنفيذاً لتوصيات اجتماعات حكومة دولة الإمارات التي تدير خلالها الهيئة محور الموارد البشرية الحكومية، حيث كان من بين توصياتها توسيع رقعة انتشار نادي الموارد البشرية ليغطي جميع إمارات الدولة لتحقيق أكبر فائدة للمهتمين والمختصين بالموارد البشرية. السيدات والسادة، يعد نادي الموارد البشرية أحد المبادرات الاستراتيجية للهيئة الاتحادية للموارد البشرية الحكومية الهادفة إلى تعزيز قدرات وإنتاجية القوى العاملة في الحكومة الاتحادية، ويوفر النادي لمنتسبيه فرصة مثالية للتعرف إلى أفضل الممارسات والاطلاع على قصص نجاح العديد من الأفراد والمؤسسات والتواصل مع المختصين والمهتمين في مجال الموارد البشرية والخدمات المساندة من مختلف القطاعات. باب الانتساب للنادي مفتوح ومجاني لكل من يرغب من المعنيين والمهتمين، ويمكنكم التسجيل فيه من خلال الموقع الإلكتروني للهيئة الاتحادية للموارد البشرية الحكومية www.fahr.gov.ae. السيدات والسادة، يستضيف هذا الملتقى السيد أبو أمين رئيس فريق الاستراتيجية والتحول في شركة PwC الشرق الأوسط، وستتم الإجابة خلال الملتقى على تساؤلات عدة، منها لماذا تعد المهارات في العالم الرقمي حاجة ملحة للمؤسسات والحكومات والمواطنين؟ كيف نقوم برفع مستوى المهارات في مجتمعاتنا على نطاق واسع؟ كيف يكون رفع مستوى المهارات باستخدام التقنيات الحديثة؟ أما الآن فاسمحوا لي أنا محدثتكم وعود الدرمكي من الهيئة الاتحادية للموارد البشرية الحكومية أن أرحب بالسيد أبو أمين رئيس فريق الاستراتيجية والتحول في شركة PwC الشرق الأوسط، فليتفضل مشكورا.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's a real honor and pleasure to be here to talk to you about New World, New Skills. New World, New Skills is our position on how we tackle one of the biggest problems facing society. How do you upskill the workforce for a digital world? I'm joined by a number of my colleagues today. Randa Bassoon, who's going to come on stage in a second and talk about why this is such an important issue strategically in the market. We've then also got Reina, Jolie, and Nadine from our emerging technology team, and they will give you a live and immersive demo about what people experience could look like when you enable it with technology. So they're going to bring that to life through a demo. So without further ado, I'm going to ask Randa to come on and really talk us through why this is such a big issue for us.
Okay.
Thank you, Randa.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. It's a real pleasure to be here with you today to talk about a topic that is very, very hot today and very important in the scheme of things. If we look at the world we live in today, there has been a tremendous change over the past 2 decades. Technology has literally changed our lives, not only how we live, but also how we work, how we communicate with each other, how we interact, how we assess the performance of our governments, how we even look into the future. The marketplace, the labor marketplace, has also changed tremendously. There's a whole host and class of jobs that have disappeared. But there are also opportunities and new jobs that are appearing and are going to appear and be created. So technology is going to offer massive opportunity. However, the reality is that today, the skill sets that we have in the labor market are not what is required for the new digital world. There is a big gap that we need to address, and actually a lot of thought leadership and a lot of economists believe that this is one of the biggest problems of all times, this whole digital skills and the gap of skills. In PwC, we have committed to the upskilling agenda because we believe it is a very important societal agenda. To do that, we have committed $3 billion over the next 4 years for upskilling. This includes the upskilling of our people, but also the digitization or the technology enablement of the services that we give to our clients, but also to our communities. We believe that this agenda sits at the heart of our purpose. We have already to date upskilled 275,000 people across the globe from PwC. And today, we hope to share with you some of these experiences. We are also working with our clients from the private sector, from the government sector, but also with the NGOs to make sure that this agenda is tackled. Because we believe that every individual of any age should be able to participate in the digital world. Whether these are workers or just citizens that are not working, digital is going to impact everybody. So, is digital a good force or a force of harm? It is definitely a good force, but also there are issues that it has created at different levels of the society. If we start by looking at governments, governments have an agenda in terms of provision of services to their citizens, and these services are expected to be digital and as digital as possible. Governments are supposed to also create employment for people and make sure that the citizens have the required skills so that they can join the workforce and be ready for it. Governments also have a role to make sure that people whose roles and jobs are going to be affected by the digital revolution have the opportunity to upskill and develop themselves. The students are also worried. The students are worried about what is it that they should major in. They don't know if they go into a certain major, whether this major is going to be relevant for the future. So really, it is a problem at all levels. And we believe that to solve this problem, it cannot be solved only by the government. It has to be a collaborative effort between the government and the policymakers, between the businesses, as well as the individuals themselves. And we are seeing nowadays, more than ever, that adult workers are really investing also in keeping with their own learning agenda, developing themselves so that they can be relevant. So it is a complex issue that requires collaboration also with academia, of course. Just looking at some statistics around this whole upskilling issue. 55% of people believe that technology is going to wipe out their jobs. That's a big number. In a PwC study, we estimate that 30% of the jobs are going to be displaced by 2030. And actually, other recent studies that we have done in the region show that it actually might happen before 2030. 60% of the people that we have interviewed say that they only see a very small proportion of people who are going to have long-term employment and who are going to stay stable in their jobs. We also spoke to CEOs. Every year, PwC does a survey of thousands of CEOs. We asked them about their worries. We asked them about their priority. This year, we've asked them, again, the same question. And they said, 79% of them said that the availability of skill sets is the major worry that they have. And they cited the availability of skill sets, the right skill set, as one of their top 3 priorities. So this is the CEOs in the region. So what is it when we talk about the upskilling agenda? Is it about a training on digital? Is it just learning about what digital is? How can it affect the workforce? Is it about learning about AI, the Internet of Things? What is it? We believe that digital upskilling is very important. One, to make sure that the workers in the workforce have the mindset and understand what is the impact of technology overall on the businesses. That's one. So there is a minimum level required of awareness and understanding. And you will see, and the team will speak a little bit about our experience as PwC. But that's not enough, because there is the requirement for skills development goes beyond that. It's not about pure digital skills. It's about what skill sets are required for us to strive in a digital world. So we're talking about soft skills. Number one, I would say, such as resilience and adaptability, because that's something that we all need to make sure that we have and we are equipped with this skill set. It requires leadership. it requires more than ever, a requirement for change agility so that we can adapt to the new requirements. But of course, also for each job role, depending on its nature, there will be a requirement for specific training or capability building. More importantly, the last message before I complete the introduction is that what we're seeing, the major gap is really in the culture, the digital culture in the organization. There needs to be a mindset of digital within the organization in terms of how we approach our clients or the customers, how do we approach employees. It has to be digital first approach. With this, I'll hand over to Abu.
Thank you so much, Randa. Thank you. So what I'd like to, thank you. So what I'd like to share with you now is how have we done this to ourselves? I want to share the PwC case study because we don't want to just, talk about why it's important. We want to also take action in our own organization. For PwC particularly, if you look at the research tells us that there's going to be 3 levels of automation that's going to hit us in the next 20, 30 years. The first level of automation is going to be routine jobs that are very rules-based. And if you think about audit, if you think about tax, that's exactly it, right? We have very bright people who understand the rules behind how you do an audit or how you assess tax in an organization, and they follow those rules and they make intelligent decisions around that. But the very first level of automation that's going to come is going to be exactly those jobs. So what should we do about it? That's the challenge that we face as an organization as PwC, right? If you then also think about the people experience side of it, right? We're all, you're all HR leaders and professionals in this room. We as an organization, we like to think we hire the best talent that's out there. We get the top graduates, we bring them in, and they're really bright, they're really energized, they've got lots of ideas, and then we put them in front of a spreadsheet for 3 years, and it beats any kind of initiative that they've got, right? So how do you create space, room for them to do interesting work and actually tap into that energy that they've got? So that's the other challenge that we were facing as an organization. So what we did in the Middle East, we have 6,000 people in the Middle East right now, and it's growing pretty quickly. And if you look at some of the analysis and some of the stats that Randa shared, our assessment is that about 5 to 10% of the jobs that we have in PwC every year, so about 600 jobs, are getting disrupted. That's a huge number. That's a huge headache for our HR function. It's a huge challenge for us as a business. It's a huge challenge for our leadership team, right? So that's the kind of stuff that we're grappling with. So about 8 months ago, we launched a digital upskilling program at PwC. And we said that no matter where you sit in the organization, whether you're a secretary or you're an administrator or you're the chairman, it doesn't matter. Everyone's going to get to a basic level of digital fitness in our organization. And then if they want to go further from that, absolutely fine. But everyone's going to hit a minimum benchmark. So I'll talk about how we actually delivered that. One important point I want to stress, we're not trying to make our whole company of 6,000 people programmers. That's not the idea. But when you get to a base level of digital upskilling, you achieve a few things, right? You do get those people who can create the applications and the coding, et cetera. You absolutely get that, and you'll hear from some of our team who do that in a second. But you also get, what happens is the average staff member in PwC can now see something that they do when they come into work and they go, hang on, there is a better way of doing that. And I can go and speak to my colleague who is the technologist, who is the coder, and we can figure out how to do it. So that's the first point, right? Everyone, when they hit that level of digital fitness, they can identify those opportunities. The second thing that comes out of that when you get this kind of wide-scale upskilling organization is that when that person goes to their manager or the CEO of PwC and says, I've got a great idea, this is what we should do, that leader understands what the potential of that opportunity is. They understand the technology at a basic level. Again, they're not going to code this stuff, but they understand that this is an opportunity we need to go after and we need to invest in it. So that's what we're trying to get to. Let me bring this to life for you. There are a number of initiatives we run under our digital upskilling program. And I won't talk to every single one of those, but let me highlight a couple of things. One of the things that we recognized pretty early on is the traditional way of upskilling people doesn't work anymore. It's broken, especially when you look at the young people who are coming through organizations now. So if you get them into a classroom and say, for the next 8 hours, I'm going to teach you analytics, and you're going to click here and click there, they will switch off very quickly. So recognizing that, we recognized that we needed a multi-channel and we needed an integrated approach. So we opened up a whole host of things to our people. We opened up the fitness app, which you'll get a live demonstration on in a second. And the fitness app gamifies the whole upskilling experience. I can go on the fitness app, I can take a quick assessment, and then it tells me whether I'm digitally fit or not. And then I can select a fitness plan. I can say that I'm going to spend 10 minutes every day, or if I'm really ambitious, I'm going to spend an hour every day, and I'm going to try and get my fitness up. It gives you a score, and I'll tell you one thing, at PwC, if we're anything, we're very competitive. So people get, super charged up about this stuff. They're on WhatsApp sharing their scores with each other, et cetera, and they're competing. And so that's been a great entry point for us, and we're doing this with our clients as well, to get people into digital fitness in a fun and easy way. So we did that first. The second thing we did is we said, again, no matter what job you do, no matter where you sit in our region, what your grade is, what your title is, you are going to do a one-day data analytics academy. You're going to learn how to use Power BI, Tableau, Alteryx, these data analytics tools. And again, we don't expect you to be a data scientist, but we want you to understand the opportunities and we want you to think using data. So every single one of our staff members is going through that right now. We had something called Learning Bursts. That's a weekly quiz that we do where people compete individually or in teams. We give them bite-sized questions and quizzes, and they submit, and then they win prizes. And then the thing that is really exciting, the thing that I really wanted to highlight for you guys is the Digital Accelerator Program. With our Digital Accelerator Program, we are taking 250 people in our business this year, and we're taking out of the business, we're taking them away from their client projects or their day jobs for 6 weeks, and we're absolutely immersing them in these emerging technologies. So we're not, and we're not picking technologists. We've had people in our organization who are secretaries going into this program. We've had people who are juniors. We've had people who are seniors. All sorts. So the diversity is amazing. But you get people coming out of this program after 6 weeks, and they think in a different way. Yes, they can use the tools. Yes, they suddenly become experts in some of these tools, right? But their mindset is totally different, as Randa was talking about in terms of culture and so on. So that's been a phenomenal kind of success for us in terms of accelerating the people in our business who can see ideas and actually execute them. That's been absolutely critical. Let me give you some numbers to bring this to life. So we opened up our accelerated application process in March. Out of 6,000 people, 800 people have applied to get into the program. We only have 250 spaces, so we are putting those 250 through it. So it's the best talent that we have at PwC going through this right now. And the energy and the ideas and the things that you see these individuals producing are just phenomenal. It just reinforces this point that if you give talented people a little bit of space, a little bit of support, and a little bit of learning, they can do amazing things. And that's what our accelerators are showing us. And then if you look at the adoption and some of the other things, 4,100 people out of our 6,000 have gone through an academy so far. 90% have completed their digital fitness app assessment. And what's interesting is that we ask everyone to do the assessment. That's the only thing that's mandatory. We don't ask them to go back into the app every week, but 40% of those people are doing it anyway because they enjoy it, they're learning, they're getting something out of it. So we're really pleased about the numbers that we're getting and the pace that we've been able to move. And we're seeing similar results with some of the clients that we're working with. I'll just wrap up with I think, 3 takeaways, right? One is, when you do this kind of thing, it generally is about culture change. I'm sure you've been in situations where you've seen this, and maybe in your own organizations where you make some learning available. Maybe it's LinkedIn Learning, maybe it's Microsoft, maybe it's some other tool, right? You make all this learning available, but it doesn't stick. And the reason it doesn't stick is because there's a whole change management, there's a whole system and a process that you need to drive behind it. That's the key takeaway for me, number 1, right? This has got to be fundamental to your strategy. This whole upskilling that we're talking about, at PwC, we only have 4 pillars in our strategy, and one of those is upskilling. So our chairman's out there talking about it. It's not an HR initiative, you know, I have to say, in a room full of HR professionals, it's not HR absolutely drives it and makes it happen, but it's our chairman who's sponsoring it and making it happen. So that's number one. The strategic narrative is super, super important. The second thing, we made a promise to all our people. We said, look, we're not leaving anyone behind. So as long as you commit and you lean into this, you'll be able to benefit from it. Every single person an opportunity, no matter what job you do, you will have an opportunity to upskill yourself. So that's the second thing really for me. And the third thing that I would just leave you with is that think about that whole multi-channel approach. People learn in different ways. And if you look at what's on here, it might seem complex, it might seem, there's a lot going on here, but actually it's relatively simple to execute. And you can bring in different parts at different times, you can stagger it, etc. But think about the way that people engage with learning these days. Very often my team, when they're trying to learn something, the first thing that they do is they go on YouTube. They don't go on Google, or they don't try and open up a manual. They look on YouTube and find out if there's a walkthrough and how someone's done this. So that multi-channel approach is really important. And then finally, if you get all of this right, the prize at the end of all of this is this whole idea of citizen-led innovation. Because we recognize that for us, for our clients, the real innovation in the organization is not going to come from the IT function or some kind of digital team sitting in the corner somewhere. It's going to come from every single individual in that organization. So how do you unlock that? How do you unlock that through the upskilling, and how do you inspire people to feel confident that they can do that, right? That's the prize that we're going after. I'm now going to ask my colleagues from our emerging tech team, Nadine, Raina, and Jolie, to come on, and they're going to bring to life what happens when you drive that innovation. If you take all those ideas, if you take all that upskilling and that capability, and you put it together, how can you change the people experience that happens in an organization? So they're going to do a live demo and bring that to life for you guys.
Yeah, just while the team comes on the stage, I just want to say that the upskilling initiative that we had, which was labeled Tomorrow Today, went all the way up to our partners. So all of our partners were required to actually have the digital fitness app, to have a minimum score. It became part of our KPI at the end of the year in terms of how we are measured as leaders. So I just wanted to make that point because that was, again, at the heart of the cultural change that we created.
Hi, everyone. My name is Nadine Labban. I'm a manager within the emerging technology team that Abu just mentioned. Assalamu alaikum. اسمي نادين لبان. Manager ب emerging technology team. وشو بنعمل بالتيم هو إنه we focus on all of the emerging technologies يلي هن التقنيات الناشئة ومنشوف how we can integrate them دمجهم مع our day-to-day business.
Assalamu alaikum. اسمي رينا بابا. I also work in the emerging technology team. We look at different technologies, artificial intelligence, blockchain, Internet of Things. But today specifically, we will focus on automation and a lot of other technologies like virtual reality in an HR scenario. So inshallah, this is what we will focus on, and we hope we bring something to life.
السلام عليكم. أنا جولي كمان مع نادين ورينا بالإمرجينج تكنولوجي تيم، وإن شاء الله اليوم حناخذكم على الجيرني مع نور، وهي امبلويي بكل شركة من شركاتكم، ونشوف كيف حياتها حتتغير ب all these technologies as they come together to make her life easier, her and your lives.
So basically, in case you're wondering who Noor is an employee that represents every single organization, no matter the business, the sector, or the industry. And the three of us today are going to tell you the story of Noor that she is going through using the different emerging technologies. So as she starts, Noor comes into the office, she's onboarding, and it's her very first day within the office. So imagine, and we know that as HR professionals, you know that usually new employees are stressing out about their first day, they don't even know what to expect, if there are any technologies they need to be aware of, what are the processes they need to know about. And as Noor walks in to the office, she gets the facial recognition. So نستعمل تقنية التعرف على الوجه to be able to recognize that this is a new employee and have her badge printed. So we'll see that in this example.
When your attendees show up to the event, they just walk up to the iPad, which scans their face, a green circle appears, and their name badge is printed.
So again, this is one example of how we use facial recognition to get the badges printed. And again, we can use them not only to recognize the new employees within an organization, but also in every single event that you have. So for example, here, it would be great to also have like this technology that recognizes all of the attendees. So now Noor is onboarded, she's in the new office, and she knows, she has her badge, and she's a new employee. Now, let's see what happens next. She sits on her desk, and she sees a small leaflet, ورقة صغيرة, that says, "Welcome Champ." So this paper asks her to download an application that is called PwC AR, and this application basically uses the augmented reality technology, الواقع المعزز. Very similar to Snapchat and Instagram, whenever you have like new features, it's the same exact technology, but we're gonna see how this integrates in an HC context here.
Hi all, welcome aboard to PwC. We're happy to have you with us. I am Emma Campbell, the PwC Middle East People Partner. And whilst I can't be with you today, I've sent an augmented reality Emma 2.0 to welcome you. We will hopefully see more of each other as you continue your exciting PwC journey. We will continue to see exciting technologies such as this and much more going forward. Our ask of you is simple. Keep an open mind, be creative, and always think digital. Until then, please enjoy your first week of onboarding and best of luck to you. Hi all, welcome.
So imagine here in this scenario, Noor came into the office, she saw this leaflet, and as she scanned it, she was able to meet the people partner, who's our HR lead for the Middle East. So there was no need for her to meet her face-to-face. She knows her, she has a personalized experience for her, she has her email address and her phone number, and she was able to directly call her. So now that Noor's experience, from the moment she was onboarded to her in the new office, all the way to getting to know about her people partner, she gets to know a new, we would like to call it person within PwC, that is called PwC Buddy. So PwC Buddy is basically a virtual assistant, very similar to Siri or Alexa, that helps Noor in her day-to-day life going forward, and we're gonna see it later on with Rena and Julie, and starts helping her at the very beginning with onboarding. So we know, and I'm sure each one of you in this room knows, how hard it is sometimes to communicate with all of your employees, especially like coming from HR. So using the virtual assistant, all of those processes, the repetitive tasks, the manual tasks, are made much easier and are automated. So in this example, Noor starts interacting with her virtual assistant. So the very first thing that she got, the very first message, was to download the PwC AR. She was able to do that, she scanned the package, and she saw Emma Campbell, our HC lead, come to life. But then, building on the new world new skills that Abu and Randa just covered, Noor wanted to know what PwC is doing in the digital world. So the virtual assistant gave Noor different applications, such as PwC AR and the digital fitness app, for her to be able to upskill herself all the way through. The second thing, Noor had a meeting with her career coach, and she wanted to know exactly where her career is going, and she wanted to know who she should be interacting with in her day-to-day work. So she asked about her career coach, and immediately the virtual assistant gave her the full background of the career coach, even the face of the career coach, so that she can know him and his background. And one more thing that the virtual assistant knew. Since Noor is a new employee within a new company, and she's a little bit confused on her first day, she wanted some help with her housing loan. And each one of us went through this process. So instead of finding the right contact, the right email address, know exactly the application, all of these things, the virtual assistant gave all of those features to Noor, and she was only responding to questions. So it asked her the month that she wants to be paid for her housing loan, the exact amount, and then she receives an email that her housing loan has been approved with the filled Excel sheet. So imagine a process that could take, also from an HR perspective, that could usually take hours of the time of the employee, but also someone sitting in the HR function. Now it's taking only minutes, and it helped Noor have a better experience, and she is more engaged, and she is excited to continue her journey within the firm. So Noor got exposed to different technologies that helped her through her experience, and she is very excited to start her day-to-day job. So Reena will cover the second phase of Noor's journey, that is the development.
Thank you, Nadine. So up to this point, Nadine covered the first stage, which is the onboarding. But there was one very important step that we did not mention, which is maybe the onboarding stage, because there's an amazing team out there who actually had to write the job description, who had to do the CV screening process, who had to hire Noor. So if we look at that, we don't really just look at Noor's perspective and her experience. We want to drive efficiency really in every HR function across all businesses, because this is one team that is always at the heart of the business. So we said, how can we really help this team drive efficiency? We highlighted some pain points and processes, and we said that there's like a massive or a lot of opportunities to improve the work. And Randa, early on, you mentioned that up to 30% of the jobs today are maybe might be automated, but we can look at it also from an opportunity side. And if you think about it, we do not automate jobs, we automate tasks. So if a person has to do something that is very, very repetitive, but also can innovate and be creative, we try to automate whatever is very repetitive, and we leave the room for innovation and creativity, especially in an HR function where we really need like human traits like compassion and so on. So in that perspective, before we get into showing you how we can help HR make the work more efficient, I just want to talk a little bit about the technology. And allow me to ask you here, when we say the word automation, what is the first thing that comes to your mind? Thoughts? Machine. So that's the thing. Whenever we say automation, sometimes we think Terminator. We're gonna end the world. But automation or even technology overall is a spectrum, أو سلم, درجات. We can start with something very, very simple and does not really consider technology. Something can be very, very easy to automate very basic things, and we can go all the way to artificial intelligence or الذكاء الاصطناعي. So in that perspective, we looked at our own HR function, and we said two things we want to look at. One, writing job descriptions. Why do we have to keep writing job descriptions from scratch every single time while we have a huge amount of data that we can use? And we can actually use basic automation called robotic process automation, where you literally tell the bot which website to go to, information to get for you, and send it to your email. And this does not require any sort of artificial intelligence, because this is very, very basic or unsophisticated. So first, let's have a look at that demo. So this is basically an application we built in-house for job descriptions. We said, if I want to have a look on a job in electronics, let me search for that and see my inventory or everything that I have, and I'd be able to edit that or create a new one and so on. And at the same time, we said a lot of the times we do understand that there are roles that we might not have any information about. So in that specific example, I didn't find anything on accounting. So I basically say, I want to scrape the web. So I have here LinkedIn, Glassdoor, many different platforms that help me as a person sitting in HR to look for job description. I put my email, and then I expect that the robot will find results for me that will help me automate my job or help me basically do the online research. Meanwhile, I can be doing something more useful. So in that scenario, I go to my email and I have a whole bunch of descriptions that I can use or results that I can use in my job description. And this is not to say that I don't have to do it anymore. Well, of course, I need to have a human evaluate this and say, this makes sense, this is something I want to use, and so on. So the human element is still very, very important. So up to this point, we've done with the job description bit. Now, for the hiring, we also said that when we do CV screening, one part is very important and we do think might not be automated, and one part can be as simple as just going to the system and just downloading maybe 300 CVs by day. Why do I have to have an employee downloading CV by CV or going to different systems and evaluating this? So we said as a first step, we also went to a very basic technology called RPA, or robotic process automation, and we taught a software robot that lives on the computer a bunch of clicks, mouse clicks. Go here, click here, download. That's done. That's the easy, unsophisticated bit. So that's what it's basically doing here. And then it evaluates the CV, and this is where you need artificial intelligence. Because what we're doing here is that we're looking at a CV and we're tracking some keywords. So for example, I have an open role for data scientist. If the person applying is an accountant, I would immediately remove the CV and I would not have a human look at it. But if I have a bunch of data scientists, I would want to evaluate them personally and look at their background and interview them basically. So again, the human element is super, super important. So up to this point, we've covered two main applications that HR might find it a pain point from a repetitive and manual work perspective. And again, we don't look at technology as a way to automate any of the jobs because we do think that the number one thing that every HR function should be doing is just caring for the people. Because the people at every business are the most valuable assets. So in that perspective, we can move to the next stage from the life of Noor, and we can see how does really HR care about Noor during her development journey and during her life at the organization.
So just before Noor even joined, all of these things have been happening, like from a job description perspective, from like screening the CVs, and she was not even aware that this happened.
100%. So I think in that perspective, what we covered is that Noor had a seamless experience, very good, happy employee, doing things efficiently, and so many things are done in the background, as you said. Job description, CV screening, a lot of things that are driving efficiency in the business internally anyway. So from an HR perspective, we said, how can we really care for our people? Once they join the firm, they've been with us 3 months, 3 years, and so on. We looked at the offices and we said, how does your office or their environment affect your employee from a wellness point of view, also from productivity point of view. So we looked at different metrics and we said we want to deliver the best experience for an employee. Once they come in the building, they're facially recognized, they have up to this point an amazing experience. Once they go in the office, how do we ensure that we maintain this experience and they don't really feel that the office is too hot or it's really good for their own preferences? So if we see the journey, we said that we want to have one more. Here we have like the floor map, map, and if I go out of the elevator, I should have the transparency and the visibility to say, this is where I want to sit, because this is more suitable for me versus another area that might not be suitable for my preferences. And another thing is that we really studied all the metrics from air quality, like the CO2 we breathe, the temperature, the noise, and we saw how it really affects not only health, but also productivity, because some people might leave the organization feeling fatigue at the end of the day, and sometimes it's not related to work, sometimes it's related to just the environmental factors that you can really control as an organization. So this is where we see also a huge potential to care for the people. And here, like as an example, in a specific room, I can have a look at CO2, I can really know the facts, how it's affecting me at all times, I can immediately take actions if it goes above or below the target. I would immediately have a contact with a building manager to fix the situation for me. So that's basically an overall journey for Noor during her development and even the pre-boarding. So we looked at virtual assistant that will be all along her career, facial recognition as well. From a security perspective, going in the building, we looked at how HR were able to do the job efficiently by writing a job description quickly, doing the CV screening with the help of the technology, and finally by ensuring that during her life at PwC, Noor is comfortable and her productivity levels are high. In the next step, we're going to see how, as a company, we're going to try to retain this employee.
Actually, just before we move on, you guys have already seen a lot of cool technologies that we showed you so far. So from onboarding to development, but I want to touch on 2 things, actually 3. So Reina just mentioned the wellness room. And you're probably wondering, why is it so important? So me personally, sometimes I come into work, I've had 8 hours of sleep, I've had my coffee, I've had a very good breakfast, but for some reason, I come into work and I'm tired. And I can't explain why, even though I've done all that I'm supposed to do, I've drank my water. But you don't realize that humans operate at different levels. So there are some studies that show that women prefer and are more productive when it's 2 degrees higher than men. So if the temperature in the room is 16 degrees, women would prefer to be at 18. So you will notice if you walk in any corporate office, when the AC is on, all the ladies are cold, trying to type, while all the men are very happy. And this is an ongoing debate. So what we're trying to do with our perfect room is not create a perfect room for everyone. We're trying to create an environment that makes every single one of you guys comfortable when you work. So actually 3 of us, when preparing for, we were in a couple of conferences before this, sat in that room that we created in PwC, and we got the Dyson, the one that rotates, that's hot and cold, and we had it on 28 degrees. And any one of our male colleagues that walked in the room to like grab something or to get something automatically went right back out. They're like, it's too hot for us. But that's fine, because when we had a meeting with a bunch of them, when it's both of us, male and female, we were able to adjust the temperature. And it might be something super, super minor, but you don't realize how much that impacts your day. Second thing I want to point on, which is something Nadine covered, chatbots. You've seen so many organizations introduce chatbots into their systems. It's the new thing. How can I make things more interesting? How can I make paying bills easier? How can I make asking questions easier? But our step is not, again, like Rene said, to replace us, not to replace, because we are the talent. You are all the talent. It's to make things easier for us. So even with the PwC buddy idea, in our minds, this is not what we can do that's best. We can go higher. And not in terms of making things more complicated, but in terms of making things more personal. So in your head, there's someone at work that you know is very, very, very good at hiring people. And let me give that person a name. That person is Nadine. So in your head, the reference point is who? Nadine. Imagine having a bot that's called Nadine. So when you're thinking of something that you need to do, instead of saying, okay, I'm going to refer to my chatbot, I'm going to refer to Nadine. And you don't realize that the human mind connects more when you connect it with people and not with machines. And that's the next level. How can we connect machines and people to make them seamless? Like it's anything you do every day. So with that said, I'm going to move on, which is the last stage. In all what you do here today and in every corporation, again, we onboard, we hire people, and we develop them. We invest our skills to make them better. But then the most important part is to retain them. How? So I work, along with these lovely ladies, with the VR lab. What's VR? Virtual reality. I'm sure you've seen a lot of things. There's the Dubai Mall Virtual Reality Park, so many things. But why is this important in terms of training people? Well, we're all sitting in this room today, and I was sitting there at some point when everyone was presenting. My phone might vibrate. I might have fidgeted a bit. I might have wanted some water. They're small distractions, but every distraction I have in my life makes me lose a moment of some information I could have retained. So what we're trying to do for Noor and for all the employees is create an environment for them that's personal, where when we try to feed them information, they completely retain it. So PwC US has actually launched the biggest VR study in the world to compare 3 things. Classroom training, which is the traditional we all went to school training, there's a teacher in front, black pen, red pen, right, wrong. E-learnings, which are things that are on your laptops, and VR trainings. And they found that people retain information way better in a VR training set. Why? Imagine I put a set on your head, and you have no more access to your phone, or to the water next to you, or to even your colleague next to you, and I give you a 5 or 6 or 7 minute training to feed you some really important information. And this information can vary no matter what it is, whether it's about diversity, inclusion, new skills, something to help you be motivated. In this 5 or 6 minute frame, you're completely immersed somewhere else. And you're no longer thinking about all the other things that we have to think about on a day-to-day basis. And this training doesn't just extend to giving people information. So I remember when I joined 3 years ago, PwC, I had a very, very big first meeting. And I was super nervous. And unfortunately, I didn't have the capability at that time to practice for my meeting other than to sit in a room, open my notebook, and read all my notes. But with VR training, what you can do is put on that set and imagine yourself in the very exact same room that we're in and train. So you start talking, and the machine automatically picks up your words, your body temperature, how much I'm moving, where I'm looking, and gives you real-time feedback. So if I'm standing too still, it tells me, Julie, you're being too still. Try to move around a bit. If I'm only looking on this side, it tells me, Julie, stop looking to the right-hand side, look somewhere else. And this way, I can actually prepare in a more efficient way for my meeting. And the third one, before we get to the last demo we're going to show you, is development in the sense of difficult conversations. Us as humans, we're wired to think we are the best at what we do. You talk to people every day, and you have learned how to talk. I mean, you know what to say, you think that your approach is right. But there are so many scenarios in the workplace that could be really, really big or really, really small that require you to have a conversation with a person. Whether if that person is being disruptive at work, or you want to tell that person you did really great this year, or you want to tell that person, you know what, you did good, but I think you're not doing enough of this. And guess what? We only have one chance to have that conversation. Every time you have a conversation with someone, you have one chance to get it right. With VR training, you don't have one chance. You have a million chances because you can start training for that conversation way ahead of time. And that's very important, especially in an HR function. Now, the demo we're going to show you next, and to link it back to Noor, is called Berry. And we've worked with the company to develop Berry, and it's very, very important to us because we face, and like many businesses, some disruptions at work. So Noor, unfortunately, in our storyline, faced some disruptions with an employee called Berry. And Berry has been spoken to several times and has had many warnings, and unfortunately, it didn't help. So we're going to show you a demo of a VR training that you're supposed to experience alone. Now, we are in a big room, so there are going to be distractions. But I don't want you to focus on the messaging. I want you to focus on the training, on the facial reactions. Look at the eyes of the person. Look at the wrinkles of the person. And then we'll discuss a little bit more after this video. Click.
Hi, thanks for coming in. How are you?
I'm good. How are you? You look great. New hairstyle, right?
We've addressed the disruptions you've caused with coworkers before. This last one is strike 3.
Everyone is so... Oh, come on. Everyone is so sensitive. You know, it wasn't like this 10 years ago.
As discussed, your actions are disruptive to coworkers. This is the final offense, and we're letting you go.
How can you... I have 20 more years experience than anyone in there. Have you looked at my sales numbers? How do you justify this based on those numbers?
This is not about your job performance.
But can we just back up for a second? This is all... Let's just talk about this, okay? Let's just talk.
I'm sorry, but we've already talked about this. The decision to let you go is final.
Do you... Why? Who
Okay, I'm going to stop it right here because I feel like this part is a very powerful moment. Usually when you do trainings, it's so scripted, right? You say a question, you get an answer. But these last 10 seconds, you've noticed his reaction, which is a very human reaction. People do get hurt. People have things to think about, whether it's their family or who they're supporting. And you will get this reaction when you talk to someone. So imagine having the chance to train for it, to realize how can I draw the line between being professional and being sympathetic to a situation. Because there is a middle ground that we should all meet. Now, in this scenario, you notice that there's 3 options for the person with the set to say. Now, we've worked with the team because we saw that these are the most common options for us. But again, VR is customizable. So we weren't just happy with this. We were like, you know what? It's a great training. I was personally very hurt when I did this the first time around. But you know what? It doesn't look like my PwC office. I mean, we have great carpets. We have orange panels. The phone we use is a bit different. I don't know. It doesn't feel personal. So what we said to ourselves, we're like, you know what? This is not enough. We've built another training, and we've customized that training from scratch. What I mean by from scratch is that the color of the carpet matches our PwC offices. The pencils we use are the same. The notebooks we use are the same. Even the set, the earphone set for the conference is the exact same. So when I started doing that training, I'm like, whoa, I'm back in the office right now. And it felt a bit more personal. And this is important because every single of these trainings can be personalized to every single one of your companies. Or if you don't want it in a company scenario, you can have it on the beach, on a mountain, on top of Burj Khalifa. It doesn't matter because it's all customizable. So before I actually hand it over back to Reina and Nadine to wrap things up, I just want to say one important thing. Whenever we show these cool technologies, I think everyone, when they see cool technologies, they get really excited. But again, like we said earlier, the point of these technologies is not to replace us. We are the key talent. But it's to give you those 2 extra hours a day to read a book, to go to a conference, to work out, to have a discussion with your colleague about something that you always wanted to know about. It's not, these technologies, we can build them in what? From 2 weeks, from a day to 2 weeks to 6 months. They're doable, they're there, they're happening. The point is, how do we make these technologies fit into our cultures to give more time for every single one of us to do what we're good at? Because we've all been hired to do something, and we have that talent that we need to use. So I'll hand it back to you guys. I feel like I've overspoken.
Yeah. So, sorry, we just covered, so now Julie gave us an example of how we can use virtual reality in conducting all of the different trainings that our employees go through. So maybe just to add on this example, I had a career coach module that I had to go through, like a training. And I actually used virtual reality to be able to practice 2 my career coach modules, which is something that was very powerful, and I was able to repeat it as many times as I wanted based on my own time. So, and not only that, another example is to prepare for a pitch. You previously mentioned that whenever we have like a specific meeting or a stressful meeting that we have with some specific stakeholders, we want to prepare for this meeting. So we use also virtual reality to be able to see the same slides that you are going to practice for and be 100% ready and be able to like monitor all of our metrics, my body language, my where I'm looking, my eyes, how my stakeholders are interacting, and to be able to improve. So a very powerful method for trainings.
I 100% agree with that, Nadine. To wrap up, I think we've looked at the life of Noor from very different perspectives, starting with the onboarding all the way to development and retaining. I think my main message is that the technology, again, is here now and it's moving forward, whether we're on board or not. But the message is to really fill in that gap between us and tech. And one of the most interesting facts that I want to share with you is that the biggest tech providers in the world, Google, Microsoft, Amazon, they're all building the tools that are no-code tools. So if you remember earlier on the demos we showed you on the job description automation, the CV automation, they're all projects that are built with no code, because what these companies, the tech companies, realized that the power is in the hands of the business. So when people suffer from these or that have pain points around these problems, they do not have to go and code and figure a solution out. They're giving it basically to the people who really suffer from the problem, so that sometimes they can build the solution their own. So this is the main message, and I think we're at a time where we really are able to bridge the gap and accustom to new world, new skills.
And then finally, just to wrap up, Life of Noor, we need to remember that we are literally in the middle of a technological revolution. So everything around us is changing, new technologies are coming through, and they are just disrupting the way we live, think, see, hear, anything. So we just need to remember that as our workflow, our workforce, and our workers are changing, we need to be able to always adapt to all of those changes and focus on one key aspect of our business, which is our people. So we hope the Life of Noor was engaging and provided a seamless experience for Noor at least. And
just one final point, if you guys want to read a little bit more about VR, we're actually currently putting together a report on the economic impact of AR, augmented reality, and VR, and hopefully it'll be released soon. So it's a really good read, so you can see how it applies to the different industries. It'll be released soon, so just look out for that.
thank you.
Thank you.
Great. So we have seen the life of Noor, and we have spoken about in the introduction about the importance of really having a skills revolution to go hand in hand and as a reaction to the digital revolution. We believe that upskilling is a strategic imperative. We believe that, being here again with Fahar, HRA, to have the discussion around the importance of this imperative, which is really the upskilling, has to happen now, because the challenge is time. We cannot be reactive. We cannot wait, for jobs to be displaced. We cannot wait for workers to feel that they are not relevant so that we can tackle this agenda. We need to tackle it head on by, one, looking at what are the requirements of the future workforce, really having a look at it, defining what does upskilling mean, because everybody looks at it in a different way. So if we're looking at, again, the agenda of the regulators, whether it is at a federal or local level, what do we mean by upskilling? Let's define what do we mean by this imperative. Let's then look at how can we change the culture within the government and public sector so that we can provide a seamless, more personal, and more consistent experience to the employees, and use more wisely the time and the resources that we have to provide a better experience for our people. The team has touched upon well-being. We believe that HR now more than ever has a big role to play in the well-being of employees. HR has to focus more around diversity. HR has to focus more around the productivity agenda, which is part of the opening statement, which is very important for the agenda of the government in the UAE. And with the usage of these technologies, we can really truly move the needle around the productivity agenda. Because as much as we can try, to look at ways and means in which we can cut resources or bring them down, if we do not really transform HR in a digital way, we will not be able to really move the needle around productivity within HR, and let alone be partners of the government in terms of driving the productivity agenda more widely. With this, I'm going to leave you with that final statement. Upskilling is a strategic initiative. It requires partnership across the board, and we're more than happy to, again, be your partners in this journey.
نشكر ضيوف الملتقى ونفتح باب الأسئلة على أن تكون مختصرة وفي صلب الموضوع. We thank you all for listening, and now we move on to the third part of our event, which is a discussion panel. We appreciate your participation and relevant questions or discussion points. ما عندكم أسئلة؟
Thank you for this interesting discussion. My name is Shayma. I'm from the Federal Authority for Government HR. I have a question, actually. You've mentioned the use of emerging technologies. We've seen the demonstration on virtual reality and augmented reality. My question is about using AI, because you also mentioned that. As to my knowledge, that AI actually learns from existing behaviors, and then that's how it creates new decisions. But if the history says that some decisions are biased, then how would you prevent that from becoming the decisions that AI has to make in the future?
It's a great question, and maybe you guys want to come in as well, but I think you're right. So I think what you're talking about there is machine learning, where we are in this new era. It's the biggest breakthrough. This is why AI is such a buzzword, right? We're in a situation where you can throw a lot of data at a machine learning algorithm, and without defining any rules, as long as you define what the objective is, it will figure out the optimal way of doing that. The challenge with all of that is, you're absolutely spot on, and I don't think the answer is figured out yet, is how do you avoid biases to come in? How do you avoid unintended consequences, right? And so that's why there's a lot of discussion right now about the ethics of AI. And we at PwC have put together an ethical framework, and to think through how do you make the right choices. And this is where this point about being human is so important. An AI algorithm will never figure that out. But I don't know, Nadine, Reina, if you guys want to come in and maybe add to that.
It's always the same concern about technologies, and this comes up about every technology, because even with virtual reality, a lot of people say, I don't want to be monitored, and I don't want people to track where I'm looking, because it's kind of a violation of privacy sometimes. So in that perspective, exactly like you said, Abu, we have a team only specialized to have a responsible AI or VR framework where they really keep up with the latest regulations. They make sure that these very controversial topics are covered,
and at the same time, we have teams that we want them to be able to still innovate and be creative and build without really limiting their innovations because of regulations and so on. But this is something that we definitely look at separately as well.
Yeah, just one final intervention on this. I mean, your point again is very valid. If we think about the usage of AI in different sectors, take for example defense. There's a huge ethical, potentially ethical dilemma attached to the ability of machines to take decisions around, you know, the life of human beings. So there is a need even for the government or even NGOs to have ethical councils that look at the usage of AI, and we are seeing an emergence at the level of NGOs and government to look specifically at this wider agenda. It's broad and it is very relevant.
Yeah, if I can, just one example, if I can share with you, there's a US tech company that we work with, and they decided to use AI algorithms in the same way that you saw in the demo to scan CVs and filter, do the first round of filtering. And it was very successful. It cut, you know, hours and hours out of the process. It was fantastic. They loved it. But then they looked at the results and they thought, hang on, we're not hiring any women. You know, what's happening? And so the AI algorithm was effectively replicating the past data where the biases were built in, that women were not getting selected for these roles. So yeah, you've got to be so careful, and you know, you've got to, and I think we're in a stage where we're all learning and we're adapting to this world. Great question.
Thank you very much. Let me interrupt. So thank you all. Sorry, I'm just going to talk to you from down here. So my name is Salwa Abdullah. I'm the Director of Programs and Projects Department in the Federal HR Authority. It was a great presentation, a great demonstration, a great new set of concepts that you came out with. So I just wanted to ask one question before the rest interrupt about data. So I know developing the body, developing the AR, developing the AI requires a lot of data that need to be trained during a long span of time. So I just wanted to know how PwC dealt with that. How did you prepare the data? How long did it take you? And what aspect did you take into consideration in this regards?
Okay, maybe I'll kick off and my colleagues can come in. So again, it's a great question. I don't know, maybe in your organizations, I don't know how you feel about this. In our business and a lot of the clients that we work with, the challenge that we see is that we have more data than ever before and we don't know what to do with it. We don't know how to make sense of it. Every single thing that we do today creates data, every touch point, every application that we use, every client interaction. So our biggest challenge was how do we take all that data and how do we connect it all up and actually unlock the value out of it? You know, we were drowning in the data rather than not have enough data. So that's point number one. And then point number two, the whole point of this whole digital upskilling journey that we took our people on, this is just the first year of it, and this is going to obviously carry on for a long time. But we intentionally chose data analytics as the focus area. Data analytics is the foundation that then unlocks RPA, that unlocks AI. And our firm belief is if people adopt a data mindset, they can figure out a lot of other stuff. You know, it doesn't matter what technologies they use, it's the mindset. Can I have a data-driven decision-making in the way I look at a problem?
Yeah.
So that's my perspective on it.
Actually, the data was really to our advantage, even when it comes to our own diversity agenda. As part of our strategy, we rely heavily on data and facts to drive decisions.
And to add on that, Abu, I think that when we talk about data, sometimes we underestimate how important it is because the number one maybe trending job in technology overall is the data scientist role. And a lot of people have the misconception that a data scientist person is the person who will build the AI algorithm to predict something, and this is like the magic of it. But it's really not. The most, the most required skill for a data scientist is to actually be able to understand the data and really extract the data that will be used to the AI algorithm. Because the fact is that the AI algorithms out there are done. And really, at a firm, at PwC or any other firm, we don't really build AI algorithms. These are done at universities level, like PhD students that are pure studying mathematics and AI. At an organization level, we look at data in terms of how do we want to label the data, the different data types, whether this is a name, an integer, and so on. So this is really key for us. And this is, again, to your point, Abu, this is why we see a huge potential in making our people understand data analytics and the different types of data as a priority.
Hi, everybody. Sorry, I haven't introduced myself as yet, so you're probably wondering who I am. My name's Alex Joyce. I'm a director in HR, so internal HR, like you guys within PwC. So I lead the talent, performance, reward, and learning and development agenda for the Middle East. I think what resonates with me about data, and being in your shoes as a HR professional, I know how daunting this might feel around using some of these new technologies and the importance of data. I think what we have done within HR is really focus on the cleaning of data. So that has taken and probably been a journey over the last 1 to 2 years, I would say at least. We transitioned to a new HR system, which is a cloud-based system called Workday. You may have heard of it. Globally as a network, so we went from 450 HR systems to 1 across PwC globally. So that's huge, and that has been a journey to focus our staff, so focus our own people on owning their data. And we ran various campaigns, and we still are running campaigns called the Time Off Challenge, which is kind of a bit of a competition to help encourage people to own and clean their data in Workday so that we have the correct and right data about our people. If you think about people analytics, then we are able to do the fantastic diversity reporting, the future insights, the kind of predictive analysis that we want to do in HR, but that started with cleaning. And that is as fun or as boring as you want it to make it for your people. But that has taken us 1 to 2 years, and we've got about 5,500 people. So from my perspective and being in your shoes, I think that is the most important thing, to have clean data around your people, to have better insights and more informed analytics for our leaders.
Forgive me for taking the microphone. I just wanted to thank you all, and thanks. This is not to end the session, and thank you, Salwa and PwC, for putting up this excellent session on HR Club. Abu Amin, I've heard you at the beginning of the talk say something that shocked me, so I just wanted to hear it again and maybe express. You said 10% is the rate of disruption of the jobs in PwC annually. Is this what you said, right? So what type of jobs are mostly getting disrupted besides, just to get I know that you guys have spoken about the digital upskilling and all that they are using to address that. And has that impacted the workforce planning strategies in PwC in the region and here? This is my first part. The second part, I think, is a follow-up on your question, Salwa, which is related to data, but from a human angle. I know that there's data cleaning and stuff and the importance of data, but there is as well something called privacy, and I think many of your employees have to give up a lot of their rights for privacy in order to achieve some of what we have discussed. So maybe you want to address that as well, correct? Thank you.
Absolutely, yeah. Thank you. Thank you for a great question, and Randy as well. Please do come in. So I think on the point of disruption, we absolutely see that 10% in our own business. But we've also done economic analysis, and obviously it varies by industry, but at the moment the rate is about 5 to 10%. And the overall analysis, depending on who you ask, it's about 30 to 50% in the Middle East region overall. So not even using new technology or robots that are coming in the future, even if you use existing technology, about half the jobs in the Middle East are probably at risk right now. To be clear, I'm not saying that in 10 years' time half the jobs are going to disappear, because there are other factors. There are economic factors, there's social factors, political factors that will hold those jobs together, right? But the disruption is coming. For us, what kind of jobs are getting disrupted? As I touched on earlier, I think some of the traditional auditing, accounting, tax jobs are heavily at risk of getting disrupted because they're rules-based, they're repetitive, there's a lot of manual effort that goes into it. That's the first wave of automation that's coming. The second wave of automation that's going to hit is more around where you have interactions between humans and your customers or your clients. So that's going to be your chatbots, your automated processes that sort of like, execute a task for you, etc. And then the third is robotics, your driverless cars, your factories, etc. So those are how we see the industry mapping, sort of working out. It obviously varies depending on where you are and what industry you're in.
Yeah, maybe I'll just add to Abu's points. So yes, the assurance or audit business is a classic one because, again, when we service our clients, there are certain, let's say, basic queries or basic advice that we provide to clients. This advice and these services can now be automated. So we can actually provide them to our client via an app. Yeah, so that's one area that is causing basically the reduction on the assurance or audit services. Also, we used to rely a lot on hours and hours of junior work to do the review of financial statements, etc. Now, with the usage of AI, we can automate quite a bit of this work. On the tax, it's exactly the same parallel. So we are actually developing apps that we can use to provide the basic services for our clients. I want to say this is not only this is not the change is not only at the level of our core business, but also in the support. So if we look at support services, whether it be the administrative support, secretarial support, again, there we have identified the need to be more productive and more efficient. So again, teaching people to use technology so that they can service more people from remote locations. And again, we can reduce this headcount. We actually have a transformation initiative ourselves around digital to look at how we can digitize our business even more.
And if I can add just one point, I haven't had the pleasure to introduce myself. My name is Khalid bin Raik. I'm a director with the People and Organization team. And I specialize in people and organizational transformation. Just to touch on 2 points around workforce planning and recruitment. We increasingly work with organizations both in the public as well as private sector. And what we're seeing now as part of the workforce planning and recruitment efforts, when they embark on such interventions, one of the key things they now look at is, from a workforce supply and demand perspective, what are the digital skills required as part of the organization, and then what jobs obviously will be disrupted. And then on that basis, even if you look at how organizations are now doing the recruitment and sourcing interventions, a lot of the emphasis are on what are the tools that the employees can leverage? How can they actually be assessed against digital skills? So it's no longer the traditional technical skills that we look at. We're also now looking at more digital skills that the employees will need to be exhibit as part of the overall talent management process.
Just a last point, just on the data privacy point. So I believe, like a lot of organizations, for us, one of the highest risks is around cyber. Yeah, and cybersecurity. So for us, this whole, digital revolution and the usage of data has led us focusing a lot on cybersecurity and making sure that our data is protected internally from any external threat. So that's one, and it's at the heart of our business strategy. Second, as a firm, we're always, again, as part of our risk management function, looking at compliance with all the, emerging rules from the European Union and other around data privacy. So again, it's embedded in our strategy.
Hi, my name is Wafa from National Rehabilitation Center. My question is, did you face any resistance from staff or management from the beginning of applying these systems? I can call it like the super advanced systems. So did you find any difficulties or resistance from employees or management? And my second question is, how do you measure the satisfaction of using and adapting these systems? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So the short answer is yes, we did. So if you remember our accelerator program, we made quite a difficult decision to say that we are going to take 250 people out of our business for 6 weeks to accelerate their upskilling journey. having that conversation with our chairman and our leadership team was not an easy conversation. So, so initially, there's a big revenue and a commercial impact for us for doing that. But our leadership also recognized that actually there is no choice. We have to move fast, and we're going to have to invest in this. We can't afford to do this in a slow, kind of light way. So I think there is an element of trying to convince leadership. There is an element of trying to help people. Absolutely, there is. I talked about the importance of change and culture, and talking about that, right, with all of these things. I think there is an element of trying to reassure people that, this point that I made earlier on, that we are going to make a commitment to you, as someone who works at PwC, that we will not leave you behind. You will absolutely have every opportunity, no matter what your job you do, but you need to commit and you need to lean in and you need to make the most of all of these resources and really get into it. So, I mean, the final point I'd make on this is, one thing that we often see, there is a kind of cliche that comes up with change management and changing culture, where people say, oh, change is negative, people are going to be scared about it, etc. But actually, when we launched this program, our people loved it. I mean, you saw 800 people apply. That's, over 10% of our organization applied to be an accelerator. So overall, the feedback's been great. We didn't see a huge amount of resistance, but it's all down to the fact that we made it part of our strategy. It wasn't just a training program on the side there.
Yeah, I just I'll add to this, and I did mention it, but I'll reiterate. It was clearly articulated as part of our strategy that all of our readers are supposed to be digitally savvy. So there was a drive, regardless of the age, and we have, partners of different ages, young, older ones. We're expected to be digitally savvy. So having that agenda set at the top meant that we had to encourage everyone to do it, and we had to lead by example. And that by itself has really reduced the resistance a lot. And at the contrary, people who were not following were almost like shamed for lagging behind. Yeah.
I just have one more point to add. From a lot of the work we do in public sector transformation, we obviously run assessment centers, we conduct training and development needs and what have you. And any intervention, whether it's a digital upskilling program or a public sector transformation program, causes resistance to change, generally. And usually, and the way we've seen this run, at least across the region, is that there is, in my view, a three-pronged solution to that. One is around, as Abu and Randa were mentioning, culture and leadership. So there needs to be leadership sponsorship at the top level at that. Second is around change management, and here we're looking at two aspects: awareness, communicating the benefits of that, and obviously training and development intervention. And the third, which is becoming increasingly important, particularly in the private sector, is around performance and reward. So how do you link that change to performance management? And again, how do you link that to particular rewards? You could incentivize particular changes within the organization. So if you would look at these three aspects, typically you could decrease the resistance to change and ensure that whatever changes that you're looking at implementing will be operationalized within the organization.
Thank you. I have one last question, I think. If anyone else have any questions? Okay, let's start with Ali.
My name is Ali Ahli, and I'm a HR director at Fahar. Basically, the question that I have, you have touch point about how AI is helping PwC in development and recruitment, as Khalid mentioned. But the question that I have, how does AI or how does that technology will help in retention, and how's the AI help in particular PwC in the retention?
We believe that digitization and technology are enablers. They're not objectives by themselves. So for us, digital is about enabling our people to focus on the right things and enabling them to live a better life and a better experience within the firm. So with that, principle in mind, we use technology to really and we did have hand in hand. So when we launched our initiative, which was Tomorrow Today, and it was around digital, in parallel with it, we launched an initiative around well-being. And the catch was, you become more digitally savvy, you can focus more on your work, you can have more time for your own physical and mental well-being. So that was really the principle, if you'd like, that we have used to make sure that we actually provide a better experience for our people through technology, and we are living it. Just a second point related to this, our recruits are majority of our recruits are under the age of, actually our population averages probably around 25. It's a very young workforce. These young people, and you've seen them today on stage, they require an environment where they have access to things very quickly, where they can get a consistent response the same way they get it if they call, a telecom operator or any service provider, in the country they live in. They expect that speed, they expect that environment. So we are trying to attract those particular people, and we believe that these people will require a digitally enabled environment for them to really strive, and this is going to be a way of retaining them.
And also just to add on Renda's point, in parallel of those initiatives like well-being, flexibility, like focusing on the workforce itself, we are trying to use such technologies just like AI to be able to detect whenever our employees are going to be thinking about transitioning to another phase or so on. And then we think about different recommendations to make sure that we are retaining them. So one example, right now we are testing a proof of concept based on artificial intelligence. We call it the employee attrition model. So we developed an algorithm that is able to detect based on a specific data set, whoever from the employees, from their different research, if they are looking through LinkedIn or so on at other jobs and so on, and then how we can target those specific people to make sure that we are retaining them.
And we're selling it to clients as well.
Yeah, that's a very good point. So for example, in that scenario, maybe to start with, when we built the model, just to not limit innovation, and we said if it's feasible, we said we can even work with data, with anonymous data. So we can collect everything from working closely with our HR function without really collecting names of any individual. But when, like this is again a proof of concept, when it really gets a rollout, then we really have to take that into consideration, and it might be even a blocker. So that's, yeah, definitely a bigger conversation.
And just one last point as well, just talking about the talent retention programs. And when we've worked a lot with organizations across the region, initially when we used to look at talent retention and identification of hypos, we look at performance, we look at meritocracy, we look at the feedback that you collect. But nowadays what we also see, a criteria that's embedded as part of talent retention, are those employees who exhibit skills that represent the workforce of the future. Yeah? And that's typically how nowadays, when you look at talent retention programs, you would like to retain those individuals who have the digital skills, who are able to leverage some of the skills that represent the workforce of the future, and on that basis, you come up with those programs.
Thank you very much. Just a wrap-up question before we end. I think we need separate sessions just to go discussing all the different digital technologies that were presented. I just wanted to know from a PwC perspective, now all organizations are rushing into implementing new techs and advanced technologies. What is the logical roadmap, I might say, that PwC thinks organizations should follow in regards to such adaptations and going forward?
Yeah, okay. So I would say, if we look at it from an overall workforce perspective, or generally speaking, let's look at it from a workforce perspective. So if we're looking at the future requirements, yeah? So the first thing that has to be done, there has to be an assessment of the current capabilities within the organization, but this assessment has to be based on the future strategy and direction of any organization. Based on it, there has to be a very true and honest and bold assessment of the capability requirements. So we cannot, we have to move away from trying to fit everybody, within the future, saying, no, we can work on it. We have to be bold. We have to look at what we need in terms of future workforce requirements. That's one. Second, we need to build here a future workforce strategy, as Khalid was mentioning, that focuses on those pivotal skills for the future. So again, not a skill strategy or upskilling for everyone, but specifically to take the organization where it should be. The third pillar should be that whole cultural transformation. So how do we lay the foundation for a digitally savvy and mindful workforce? That's extremely important because we know that the major gap towards successful implementation is that whole cultural aspect. So how do we create a digitally mindful workforce? How do we leverage, the incentive, the reward, the leadership? How do we, the environment, even the physical environment, as we would have seen, in the experience with Noor, to build that. So that is just from a workforce, but the same logic could apply for any technology, technology-based transformation. Assessment, lay the foundation, and build from there.
And I think just one point to build on what Randa said, I think the challenge and the opportunity for all of us as HR professionals and leaders is you've got to do those steps at an organizational level, and we've also got to now think about it at a national level. And that's why we are trying to elevate this conversation to say, how do we get everyone, all the stakeholders who are involved in this agenda, how do you get government, business, NGOs, nonprofits, et cetera, to all come together, education, to think about this, and that's what New World, New Skills is all about. So I just want to stress that point that it's a multidimensional, it's a complex issue, right? But that's why we're so passionate about bringing people together, spreading this message, and thinking about how we solve it together.
And also, to add on Randa's point, early on you also mentioned one of the most important skills is agility. It's not only about tech. So if I would put the roadmap, let's say, in practice, myself, Nadine, and Jolie were part of a team that practically we started as an investment from the firm, and we're a research and development team. So before we even worked with the clients, PwC had an investment and said, look, I want a team to look at my pain points, develop proof of concepts to use technology to solve these problems, and then we collect feedback. If something is bad, this is back to the agility point, if something does not get very good feedback or does not get implemented necessarily, we stop there. And then throughout the whole projects, we keep listening to the business, and this is how we implement basically all our solutions.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It was a great panel discussion. Thank you.
أما الآن فندعوكم للمشاركة في استبيان إلكتروني فوري باستخدام نظام المنتيمتر وعبر هواتفكم المحمولة وباتباع الخطوات التالية: إدخال العنوان www.menti.com ثم إدخال الرمز 413331. كيف تقيم جلسة نادي الموارد البشرية اليوم؟ السؤال الثاني: ما هي اقتراحاتكم للمواضيع التي يتم طرحها في نادي الموارد البشرية؟ وفي الختام نجدد شكرنا لهيئة الموارد البشرية لحكومة أبو ظبي ولضيوف الملتقى من شركة PwC الشرق الأوسط، كما نشكركم على اهتمامكم وحرصكم على حضور ملتقى نادي الموارد البشرية. والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.